I got my degree while I was in the Air Force, so I was going to school full time, and I majored in computer science and business administration out of North Carolina Wesleyan. I transitioned. I came and worked for Booz Allen Hamilton. And Booz Allen Hamilton, as a consulting firm, really taught me a lot about writing, presentation, client engagement, and those things. So it was a great experience for a young person coming out to help develop and round out my skill set, because I was very technical. My background was primarily local area networks, comm. I built a lot of communication networks, as well as business applications for clients. The Air Force was actually one of my clients. After Booz Allen, I had the itch. I've always had the itch to be an entrepreneur. So I left Booz Allen and co-founded a company, Global Networking Solutions. We would instrument networks with Armon or SNMP. If any of you guys are comp sci guys or tech guys, what it was is agents that you put into a network, into application systems and services. You collect that information and you report back to the CFO or to people about how things are performing. So I always had a slant towards optimization, performance improvement, and things of that nature. So if you were a CIO of a company and this was your director of IT and they said, hey, listen, I need a new system, I would say to you, how do you know you need a new system? Have you tracked the performance of that system and for what length of time? And we would do that for companies, and we did very well with that for about 7 years. Then the dot-com bust came, and unfortunately, we had to wind the business down because we lost a lot of our contracts, which were telecommunication companies as well. We had marquee accounts at the time. So similar to the story that you just heard, I started in Johns Hopkins conference room with a cell phone with my partner. That's where I got my master's degree. And my partner was from there as well, and we were sitting there thinking about what is our strategy? We're going to go into business. What's our plan? What are we going to do? So we started mapping that out, and then when we built that plan, we put it into action, and we actually won quite a few contracts with very large accounts like Discovery Channel, MedStar is a hospital system, a lot of the telcos that you know, and that's how we got started. So after I wound that down, I went and actually worked for Verizon. I was in the telecom space. I was a program executive down at the Pentagon, so I ran PenRen. It was a $400 million program. And I was responsible largely for the implementation of all their data and voice after the Pentagon was struck during the 9/11. So after Verizon, I got into strategic services, or during Verizon rather, I was the VP of strategic services. I ran a large team of security guys who did IV and VCNA, pen test, real hardcore security services for a large number of federal contracts. I reported to the president of federal, and also ran application services, non-traditional telecommunications service. Right. So that's the aha moment, right? So the aha moment for me was, instead of just doing this for private equity, why don't I do it for private equity as well as for business owners, specifically the middle market? The middle market is completely underserved, in my opinion, because the large consultancies that offer these services that we offer do it for very large accounts because of their fee structure and their rate card, so they don't bring that service down into the lower market. When I describe middle market, it's an ambiguous term. It means a lot of things to a lot of folks. So middle market to me is around 150 million is sort of that average space. 300 million is kind of up on the top end of that, all the way down to 20 million.
That's very ambiguous.
Right. That's not what I was thinking at all.
Yeah, so when you hear middle market, it means a lot of things, right? So on the lower middle market, you're down in the smaller 5 to 20, 30, 40 million. As you start to get to middle market, then you're in that other range and you get to higher middle market. So there's a range there of that space. We're really, our sweet spot is probably, I'd say, between 10 and 70 million. Is really where we work a lot with enterprise operators. We work a lot with GovCons. We work a lot with commercial and companies as well. We're a horizontal play. So back to the aha moment. The aha moment was, instead of just providing this for private equity guys, why don't I go to a business owner and say, listen, you're getting ready to sell your company, or you want to grow your company. How do you increase the value? How do you increase that value before you sell? So someone like Brightkey would be an example. You build a $28 million company, the owner's contemplating a sale at some point, building an exit strategy. So the question is how are you going to get maximum value for your exit And alternatively, too, just as a sidebar, we also provide growth strategies. So maybe an exit's not the best strategy for you at the moment. Maybe you should consider holding on to it for a while, increasing it a little bit more before you sell, because again, you'll get higher value on sale.
Have you ever done anything with ESOPs?
Absolutely. So I'm tied in with private equity, investment bankers, ESOP providers, certainly, because that's a strategic alternative. So we provide what's called strategic alternatives, inclusive of exit. Growth is certainly a strategic alternative. Maybe you want to trench and wind down is another alternative. And we also help distressed companies, because a lot of the things that we provide, all that discipline that we bring to that business is going to help you regardless if you're selling or whether you're trying to grow. So most of the companies I'm working with on the middle market space are enterprises where the CEO and the management team is built to a certain level and they either are stuck, how do we get to the next level to grow it? Or they're contemplating a sale and they say, is a sale my best option? Should we sell or not? Or I've had enough, I want to hand this thing off. What's the best way to hand it off? Possibly an ESOP or succession plan. And we evaluate all the enterprise drivers in the business to identify where you have deficiency or gaps. So I'll pick on BrightKey as an example. We would go into BrightKey and we would analyze the governance model, the leadership team, the management team. We'd look at all their back-end systems for scalability. So we'd analyze each one of these parts, their business development, contract backlog, cash management, cash flow, things of that nature. We'd score that, and we'd tell you as the owner, here's where you score on these disciplines, and if you don't fix these things, this is where you're going to get impairment of value or discounting on a sale. Or you go to get capital, source capital, and you try to go to a commercial lender, this is where they're probably going to ding you because they're going to say you're not ready for that capital. I would highly encourage you to get involved with SCORE. SCORE is an organization that they offer a lot of business planning service to help you actually sit down and map out your strategy. For those of you who don't want to really necessarily jump in with SCORE or Mentor, I would strongly encourage you to check out a site called Strategizer. Strategizer has something called a business model canvas. And most folks, when they get started with a business, don't understand their business model. A business model is different than a business plan. A business model is actually going to help you pull the thread through as to how do I get money, where's my customer, and what do I need to do to get to my customer in terms of partners, activities, what's my value proposition, how do I differentiate myself. A lot of times too, I'll speak to all of you guys, if you're contemplating getting into business, don't get wound around the axle and all excited about how do I become so different. Different doesn't necessarily have to be, you're going to invent the new iPhone that's going to crush iPhone, for example, or the new technology, what have you. Just get into a space you're really good at, be the best at it, be passionate about it. You heard some really great advice earlier from Sally about, it's engage, understand your customer, be passionate, market yourself. And if you do those things really effectively, you can grow a business that you could sell anything. And compete effectively if you really put your heart to it. But again, Strategize is a great place to get started. I'd also echo great advice that you just heard a minute ago is network. Get involved in a lot of these. You guys that are transitioning out, there are a lot of networks out there where if you just walk around, shake hands, and say, listen, I'm getting ready to get out of the military, transitioning through, people will embrace you and get to know you a little bit. There's a lot of events like IAC. I had a great question I shared just briefly when I walked in. What would be the biggest risk to engaging a company like Springer Lawson for one of these middle market companies? And I thought it was a wonderful question. I never really thought about it. And one of the toughest things we have to do is we're evaluating the CEO as well as the management team. And most often, the CEO is the problem. The CEO, and I say the problem because they've built this business. They've spent 20 plus years. It's their baby. They got a lot of passion. Everything is in there that they put their heart and soul into that. I'll say, are you really ready to let go? Whether you want to, sit on a board or whether you want to just cash out, are you ready to let go? And most of the time, they'll say yes. But most of the time, when I look them in the face, I know that they're not ready to let go.